Lawmakers from Hungary's ruling Fidesz party have stalled a parliamentary vote on Sweden's bid to join NATO. At a UN Security Council meeting called by Russia, the US has defended its latest airstrikes in the Middle East as proportionate and necessary.
A secretly recorded conversation threatens to further undermine a European Parliament corruption probe.
The UK's King Charles has been diagnosed with cancer and will halt public duties as he undergoes treatment.
The US Deputy Ambassador at the United Nations has repeated warnings that more attacks will come following a weekend of retaliatory strikes in the Middle East. At a meeting of the UN Security Council called by Russia, Washington's representative said the airstrikes have been necessary and proportionate.
On February 2nd, Russia called this meeting under the false pretense that the United States has no ground to respond to attacks that have killed US personnel. It bears repeating, therefore, that the actions U.S. forces took on February 2 are necessary and proportionate, consistent with international law, and in exercise of the United States' inherent right to self-defense.
Решительно осуждаем новый вопиющий акт агрессии Соединенных Штатов против суверенных государств, создающий дополнительные риски и повышающий уровень нестабильности в и так уже пылающем регионе.
As a top UN official warned of the risks of further escalation, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has returned on a diplomatic mission to the Middle East. The US hopes to prepare for post-conflict reconstruction and governance of Gaza, to increase aid to Palestinian civilians, to release hostages held by Hamas, and to prevent the war from spreading. The EU's foreign representative, Josep Borrell, is due in Kiev in what's being seen as a gesture of reassurance to Ukraine of continued European support. The visit comes on the heels of a recent EU deal to provide the war-weary country with a new €50 billion support package. Borrell was last in Ukraine's capital in October. Meanwhile, President Zelensky has been meeting soldiers at a training center in the Dnipro region. The trip comes as Ukraine's leader confirmed he was considering the possible dismissal of the country's top military officer. Asked whether he would be firing General Valery Zaluzhny, Zelensky said he was thinking about it as a part of a broader reset of the country's leadership.
Слухайте, це кадрове питання, яке всередині нашої держави. І, безумовно, якщо ми говоримо про перезавантаження, то я хочу, щоб ви мене зрозуміли. Коли ми говоримо про перезавантаження, то ми говоримо про перезавантаження тих чи інших керівників держави, а не тільки одного чи іншого сектору.
The president has asked the Ukrainian parliament to extend martial law and general mobilization for another 90 days. Under the law, men aged between 18 and 60 are not allowed to leave the country as they may be called up for military service. Hungary is the only country holding up Sweden's accession to NATO. Members of the ruling Fidesz party boycotted a session of parliament called by the opposition to ratify Sweden's membership. After Turkey approved Stockholm's accession in January, Hungary became the last of the military alliance's 31 members not to have done so. Orbán and the Fidesz party have stalled Sweden's bid since July 2022, alleging that Swedish politicians have told, quote, blatant lies about the condition of Hungary's democracy. However, last month, Orbán promised to urge ratification.
The Prime Minister pledged to convene Parliament, to urge Parliament to act at its earliest opportunity. Today was an opportunity to do that.
Monday's session in Parliament was supported by 6 opposition parties, but Fidesz lawmakers did not attend, delaying the attempt to place a vote on the legislature's schedule.
It's also very irrational. What is he doing? Despite, all the pressure that's coming, he himself should understand that this is going to serve the interest and the security of the Hungarian society. But this is Orban, irrational, and his personal vanity is just there.
Fidesz lawmakers want Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson to come to Budapest to negotiate on the matter with Orban. Kristersson has said he will make the trip, but only if Hungary votes to approve his country's NATO membership.
The UK's King Charles has been diagnosed with a form of cancer and has begun treatment. Less than 18 months into his reign, the 75-year-old monarch will suspend his public duties, but will continue as head of state and carry on with his constitutional roles. The palace didn't say what form of cancer the king has, but confirmed that it's not related to his recent treatment for a benign prostate condition. It added that the king was remaining positive and chose to share his diagnosis to help with public understanding and for all those around the world affected by cancer. Charles became king in September 2022 when his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, died at the age of 96. His son, Prince Harry, will travel to the UK from California in the coming days to see him.
Francesco Giorgi, one of the defendants in a corruption scandal that rocked the European Parliament, has brought new evidence to try to bring down the trial. It is a recorded conversation to which Euronews has been given access, in which the chief investigator questions the credibility of the most prominent repentant in the case. Referring to former MEP Antonio Panzeri, the suspected ringleader who struck a deal to collaborate with investigators, the policeman says,
Ne croyez pas que parce qu'il dit des choses et qu'on le filme, que nous on le croit. Hein. On croit rien de ce qu'il dit. Hein. On croit rien de ce qu'il dit. On sait très bien qu'il nous mène en bateau. On le sait. Mais tout ça va péter. Quand ça va péter, ça va péter. Et lui, il prendra ses responsabilités. Et je sais qu'il nous ment.
The conversation was secretly recorded by Giorgi, who is a defendant along with his partner Eva Kaili, on his mobile phone when the senior policeman visited his home last May. During the exchange, the policeman also complains about the role of the judges.
Je n'ai aucune confiance dans la justice, parce que la justice, elle est tirée par les ficelles par des politiciens. Je n'ai aucune confiance dans le monde politique, je n'ai aucune confiance dans l'Union européenne, et je n'ai aucune confiance dans les fonctionnaires européens. Aucune. Et plus le temps passe, et plus ça me donne raison.
The audio file is part of the evidence that Giorgi's defense has produced in an up-teamed effort to bring down the trial. 6 people remain indicted and await trial on charges of accepting bribes to defend the interests of countries such as Qatar and Morocco. Both countries deny the allegations.
This Tuesday marks 1 year since the devastating earthquake in Turkey. Many of the 700,000 left homeless by the earthquake are still living in tents. In Antioch, the hardest hit city, 90% of its buildings were destroyed. Survivors are still waiting for the help promised by government.
Bulletin bize herhangi daha şu ana kadar bir açıklama yapmadı. Yıktılar, kaldırdılar, yıkıldı. Ev vereceğiz diyorlar.
Some residents were rehomed in shipping containers and others in tents despite freezing temperatures.
Akşam çok var soğuk. Sabah birazdan var.
8 members of his family also live here.
Burada 3 tane, bir tane burada. Ben orada yatıyorum, bir de kardeşim küçük orada yatıyor. Hatta gittik, bir şey vermeyeceğiz.
Turkish authorities want to start reconstruction efforts by rebuilding businesses to kickstart the economy. But this time, anti-seismic standards will be respected.
Austria wants to get more homeless people off the streets and is making hundreds of affordable rental flats available. One of the candidates is Andreas. As a teenager in Vienna, he slipped straight from his parents' house into homelessness.
Mein Vater hat mich dann am nächsten Tag einfach nur in der Früh aufgeweckt und gesagt, wir werden delogiert. Dementsprechend bin ich halt mit 18 dann noch da gestanden und habe nicht gewusst, die ganze Welt bricht zusammen, die ganzen Freunde wenden sich von einem ab, weil man plötzlich irgendwie quasi Abschaum ist.
For 6 years, his life revolved around homeless shelters and drug abuse. Thanks to the Housing First initiative, Andreas finally found a flat and then a job.
Wo ich dann auch offiziell mit den Schlüssel das erste Mal in die Wohnung reingegangen bin. Ich meine, alles leer gewesen, aber ich bin drin gestanden und habe mir gedacht, wow, nicht groß, 24 Quadratmeter, Einzimmerwohnung, aber meine Wohnung.
Im vergangenen Jahrzehnt ist die Zahl der Obdachlosen in Europa massiv gestiegen. Nur wenige Länder schaffen es, Menschen dauerhaft von der Straße zu holen, wie etwa Finnland, das bereits seit 15 Jahren erfolgreich auf Housing First setzt. Auch Österreich beschreitet nun den finnischen Weg.
Hallo, sind das jetzt die neuen Housing First Pläne? Super. Das ist der Stellenwert von einer Wohnung. Also für Menschen wie Andreas, aber für mich, für alle. Ohne Wohnung, ohne Bleibe, ohne Zuhause, mit Rückzug, aber allem, was einfach normal ist in unserer Gesellschaft, wie Wasser. Also das ist ja das, ich glaube, man kann sich nicht ganz vorstellen, was heißt Obdachlosigkeit wirklich.
Austria's government wants to move more than 1,000 homeless people into flats by September. They will then usually cover their rental costs with welfare money from the state, although many, just like Andreas, succeed in finding a job once they have a stable place to live.
Senegal's parliament has voted to delay the country's presidential election until December the 15th. In a chaotic vote, opposition lawmakers were forcefully removed from the chamber as they debated President Macky Sall's decision announced on Saturday to delay the crucial vote. The elections were scheduled for February the 25th. The move, which extends President Sall's tenure by over 8 months, sparked violent protests in the capital, Dakar, amid concerns of the erosion of democracy in the country.